I have to babysit it.
We are recording, just so everybody knows.
So how long do you think these will all take? I'm hoping less than an hour.
That's
If there's any questions, like I said, they were pretty straightforward, but they are. I won't rush anybody. If there's questions, we'll just kind of go through them. Okay, welcome to the Board Policy Committee. Appreciate everybody coming in on snow days. So we're just going to walk through these. If there's any questions on any of them, please let me know. So we'll start with policy 220. Does everybody have one? These, are you okay? Do you need me to make that?
No, I have one.
Or-
I'm fine. I'm good. I had a fine with that.
Okay. So the only update to board policy 220 is that they have raised the bidding threshold from 25,000 to 35,000. And also changing that a state intervention. We are receiving money because Jefferson and Madison are in school improvement status. So this covers both the increase in amounts for bidding as well as any money that comes to us for school improvement purposes. I'm looking at board policy 2:120. One of the things that board members must do now when they do their training is they have training on trauma responsive learning environments, and the entire child. So they go through that. Since they added that to their training, they wanted to update the board policy to reflect that. New members, correct. Board policy 200. It gives the ability, it adds the caveat to go into closed session if there is testimony or evidence presented regarding the denial of admission to school events or property, as long as a public inspection of the written decision and reasoning is available afterwards. So we can put in no trespassing. I can do, as the superintendent, no trespassing to an individual or individuals for 59 days without board approval. If an individual wants to question that or challenge that, we have a right to go into executive session into the board. I can explain my reasoning of going at, putting the no trespassing on, which I would always let the board know. And then if they do that, we just have to make sure that that's a part of minutes and the reasoning that we have done. If the board can also, and that would be done absolutely in executive session. If the board was going to extend it longer than my 59 days, that would be done in executive session as well.
So when it talks about a public inspection of written decision, it doesn't have the reasoning or anything, it just says what the decision is, or?
The decision, correct. Yes, we certainly wouldn't draw attention to what it is or what happened. Yeah, the decision would either be to keep the no trespassing or to reverse the superintendent's decision. We would not.
Would be in the minutes, but those may never be available.
Right.
On the board.
We would also not name individuals outright.
So it wouldn't be like a police matter. That would be something. Like sometimes, they're not supposed to come near certain children at the, like say one adult can pick him up and the other person can't. That's separate than this.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this is where I say we had an issue at one of the buildings last year, and I issued a no trespassing for 59 days. No, it's 2 years ago now. And because of the issues that were caused and the behavior by adults.
Because those police one wouldn't have like a, right?
The police have the ability to put anything on, but this is directly related to coming on school.
Okay.
So they would-
So I know we've had those come.
Yeah.
That should be a-
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yes,
And
that's-
that can be indefinite.
that, okay.
Okay, board policy 2:220. This allows for right now, if a board member is ill, if they are at a work event, if they are in the middle of traveling or something, they can join remotely into a board meeting. The only reason they can't is if they are on vacation. If they're on vacation, that's not a valid reason to remote in. They are now allowing unexpected childcare as long as a quorum of in-person attendees exists. So they realize that a lot of people got kids and they want to make sure that if they can't get childcare, they can still be a part of
Remind me what's a quorum?
4.
So 4.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure if there was something weird with that.
2:220 E2, E as a reminder is an exhibit. And in talking with Diane, these are the kind of formats that we utilize when we document anything that goes on in this happens to be the ability to adjourn to a closed meeting. So in talking with Diane, this is an exhibit that we utilize just as it's written here. And so we are going to adopt it. And they added the one we just talked about, the denial into events as a reason we can go into executive session. So since we're adopting that policy, we're going to adopt the exhibit that goes with it as well. And the same with 2:220E6. Twice a year, every 6 months, we review the log of closed meeting minutes to say, is there anything that can become public? And they added, again, the evidence, if someone is given a no trespassing decision, they added that there so we could utilize that there too. And if you ever see in our board minutes, Diane actually uses this exact form. We put it on our letterhead and she documents what dates the board meetings and where it qualifies. So we make sure we're going into executive session for the reasons we can. 410 fiscal management, it creates a process for mandated reserve reduction if the operating revenue is more than 2.5 times the average annual expenditure out of the operating funds. So this is something that occurs every year when we have our audit, because at that point we know what our ending balances on all of our funds are. And
She's different. This talks about the operating reserve.
operating reserve, yeah.
I thought you said that.
Oh, maybe I did. Operating reserve. This happens when we have our audit. And if we have any of our operating budget reserves are more than 2.5 times our annual expenditure, we have to make sure that we have a plan that they don't grow so large. Or if they are growing, is there a specific purpose that we're putting it towards? So for example, sometimes they build up their reserves because they're going to be adding an addition to a building or doing some renovation. As long as we have a plan to show why we're building those reserves up, that's what's important. This is done right in concert with our auditors. I ran this by Mark Campbell and he was aware. $430 is revenue and investments. It allows another investing mechanism allowable by statute for districts to attempt to earn revenue on reserves. This is, again, I ran this by Mark and taking a look at it. And it says shall either appoint our chief investment officer, which is Mark, and invest money that is not required for current operations. So it allows us to earn that revenue that helps us. 4:60. Again, I told you about the bid rule, used to be 25,000. We're upping it to 35,000 for the state. And this puts in there that we're moving from 25,000 to 35,000 bids. Four colon 130 is free and reduced price food services. Basically, it is reformatted in response to the School Breakfast and Lunch Program Act, establishing the Healthy School Meals for All program. And we look every year if state funding is available and do we meet the requirements of the Healthy School Meals for All program. And if we do, then do we want to participate in that? 4:160 is environmental quality of building and grounds. And this is a big one. It prohibits pesticides from being applied during a school day. So we will be we contract our pesticide services out, and we will make sure that they know they can either come before school or after school. That during the school day, and that again is in case there's any allergies or anything.
Because yeah, it's been a long time before COVID that I've seen them in the building when we were there, but yeah, that's good that they're doing.
Yep, so I want to make Kevin aware of that.
Is it during the school? I mean, that's during like when children are present. Correct. It seems like after school.
Yeah. Yeah, making sure that they're out. And then also a lot of times, I don't know if you're like, when they come into my office, they usually say to me when they're here, would you like an application right now? Would you like to stay? Would you like to leave? You know, they give me those options as well. So hopefully they have staff too. 5:30 is hiring process and criteria. So I reviewed this with Diane Fry. It now requires the districts to include the pay scale and the benefits in any job posting. So we can refer them to a link if it's in one of the CBAs for either DESPA or DEA, or every year we establish the hiring range for each of our non-union positions. We'll now include that in the posting. And it requires districts to prioritize the hiring or assigning of educators who hold a license and endorsement in PE music or visual arts when hiring or assigning, and guidance on AI when hiring. So what that means is if I have someone who actually has a license in PE, music, or fine arts, and they've applied for it, I have to prioritize their hiring over someone who just has like an emergency certificate. We've not had to face that. We always want someone who is, we know is going to be with us long term. And then it also talks about the guidance on AI and hiring, as you know, artificial intelligence, everything that it can create. It makes us aware and also has us think about the fact that we definitely want to interview and we want to ask questions that delve deep into people before we hire them, knowing that they can make everything up on AI and the importance of the actual interview process. It's everywhere. 5:90. This is the abused and neglected child reporting. So this has everything to do with DCFS. And there was no changes to this. And if there's an incident of sexual abuse and all of that, there's nothing changed other than the footnotes were updated. 5:190, the teacher qualifications, due to the teacher shortage, they are extending short-term substitute licenses through June 30th of 2028. And they were originally supposed to expire. Go back here. I think it was 26, yeah, so they've given it 2 additional years. Five colon 200 terms and conditions of employment and dismissal. This is again, it goes back to the prioritizing of hiring or assigning educators who actually hold the license and endorsement in PE, music, or visual arts. So again, before I hire someone that has a long-term, an emergency certificate or something. 5 to 10. This addresses the resignation of teachers during the school term and amends the procedures a district must follow when referring a teacher to the state superintendent of education due to the teacher's resignation during the school term to accept another assignment. So it outlines that a teacher can resign outside of a school term if they provide written notice to the secretary of the board, which they turn it into me and we put it in the board packet, at least 30 days prior to the first student attendance day of the following year. Teachers who resign with less than 30 days notice prior to the first student attendance day will be deemed to have resigned during the school term. And again, this is all, we had talked about this actually with DESPA recently about hire dates, and that all figures into seniority. So this is just really kind of finalizing and
It doesn't happen very often to have teachers who leave in mid-year. It was just kind of
it was a weird thing. And again, it's one of those things that you don't realize you want to look at for seniority purposes.
But I had somebody ask me a question, and I wasn't sure how that. And I guess I could ask the teachers. But when as teachers, don't you guys don't they have a contract that you're going to work with? Is that what this is? You have a contract you're going to work this year.
Mhm.
Okay, so then if you want to leave mid-year, how does that work? I mean,
So
and I didn't know how to answer that. When people asked me, I was like, I don't know. I just know we were not happy. It was just it was awful.
The
So
reason I'm smiling so much is that was one of the first questions I had to Mark at
mhm.
the board meeting.
You have to
I'm
look
just
at each,
astounded by the whole situation.
yeah. You have to look
be
at
in the class.
each case individually. If I have a teacher who wants to leave, I have the right to say, no, you can't go, or yes, you can go. If I've had a teacher and they, there's been no issues and they need to leave for a variety of reasons. If someone's unhappy, do I want an unhappy educator at the head of that classroom for the remainder of the year? No. If someone is moving and they've got to move their family, or you have to look at each individual, as an individual situation. Because I certainly don't want someone who can, quite frankly, tank an entire class down if they're not happy, not there, end up, taking sick days or personal days or whatever it is. How is that any difference when I'm trying to find a sub? We had our first case of that this year. I'd rather have it happen earlier in the semester, as we did when we have a chance to try to fill it in. It's never ideal. So all I can say is you've got to look on it on an individual basis to see what's going on.
Well, and I just said, you know a lot more behind the scenes, behind closed doors, what's going on. Than it's easy having to. So it's just.
Does this policy require you to turn them into the state, or is that up to you as?
I notify the regional office of education of what's going on. If there's anything related to that, they in turn let the State Board of Education know, and the State Board of Education then decides whether they want to pursue it or not.
You don't do it on everybody, you turn everybody who resigns.
No, if they resign within the parameters that we have,
During the
no.
school year, do you?
Yes, I notify the state board, I notify the regional office, give them the background, they do it, and then they decide, the ISB decides if they want to pursue it.
So it is required during the school year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I would.
But does it depend a lot on how you?
Sure, what I know and what I need to let them know, yes.
Margaret explained to me that the biggest thing that happens to the resigning teachers that their license is pulled. Which
That's what I read the. Well,
yeah, it benefits the district, our district, that we have the resigning teacher, doesn't benefit us at all.
yeah, but it affects their license.
Could
It
affect their
it could.
license.
That's what I
if they
read at the
decide
bottom.
to pursue
At the
it.
bottom of that, so I was like, okay, we'll head that, and I'm like, okay, so, okay. And then at the bottom, it had that.
Doesn't
Great
allow
question.
someone who perhaps knows that they've done something wrong. So I'll just resign and we'll be done. It doesn't absolve us from continuing to do our due diligence and notifying the ROE who notifies ISP.
Okay.
It's a safety net to just make sure someone doesn't job hop who doesn't need to be in front of children. Okay, policy 5220 prohibits is that the one I just went over? Or was that?
No, because
Okay.
it's here.
5220 prohibits resignation mid-year to take another teaching job, extends the amount of days a retiree can work for TRS until 2026, and discusses the process for extensions as necessary with the ROE. So the substitute teacher holding a license may teach under contract for a district not to exceed 90 days in a school term. You can keep moving them, but in one specific position for 90 days. The TRS, this is allowing teachers who need to come back to do 120 days. It used to be 90 days as well. They can now do 120 days or 600 paid hours. And that's extended now through 2026. That was to end at the end of this year again. They've kind of been pushing it each year with the teacher shortage. So that helps us because we love having our retirees come back when we have a maternity leave or something long term. And then in emergency situation, we notify the ROE within 5 business days after the employment of a substitute teacher in an emergency situation. So we can employ, the board can employ the same substitute teacher in a vacant position for 90 calendar days or until the end of the semester, whichever is greater. If prior to the end of the then 30-day calendar period, the district makes a request to the ROE for a 30-day extension, and the extension is granted by the ROE. So again, these are those emergency situations. We need to do something. We can put them in for 90 days or the end of the semester. And if we are not able to do something, we can request an extension from the ROE if needed. Knock on wood, we haven't had to do that. We've been able to keep our substitute teachers moving.
So,
So you just move them from a different, like they can teach geometry, then they go to science or something like that, and then it's 90 days starts over.
oh, so if they were doing algebra and they get moved to a different class, they can do more than 600 hours, or they can only do.
A retiree
Mhm.
can only do 120 days or 6 hours. This is an emergency situation that a sub can come in when we can't hire because we have no one who's qualified. That's a sub can come in to do that.
Okay.
Which is what you saw with our math teacher. He did his semester and he's moving on. So he's still with us. He's
Mhm.
still doing a great job and
Mhm.
just not in that position.
Mhm.
5250 leaves of absences. They have added child bereavement leave and provides entitlements that come with the designation. It denotes the amount of paid leave days a teacher elected to represent a state association can use if you're a lobbyist or an advocate, and it removes COVID-19. Specifically, they talk about the loss of a child by suicide or homicide. So if an employee is experiencing that, there's other leaves that we can look at to give them the time they need.
I did have a question on this one.
Mhm.
When it talks about teachers, is it just teachers or is it all your staff? Are we included in that? Because when it talks about elected, because it goes on to lobby or advocate, because it's 10 days. And we've never needed more,
Right.
but now that we could possibly have 3 people that go to the RA this year.
Mhm.
We could get close to getting to those.
And I believe our contract says, we can
Expand them.
discuss that if needed.
Well, yeah, because we do.
Right.
Yes, we
Um,
have that additional, but I wasn't.
And the bereavement leave, and it always talks about referring to the applicable collective bargaining agreements and what they say in there. But child extended bereavement leave is any employee.
But I didn't know about where it says elected to represent, if it's where it talks about paid leave days, a teacher. I didn't know if that we were included in that also, if it was just for teachers.
It would be yours because you have an article under there that
Okay.
deals with when you go to rep assemblies.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where.
I knew we were in
the
the
collective
bereavement.
bargaining agreement. It says teachers in here. If you had someone who became a lobbyist or a negotiator, we probably do an MOU under both, quite frankly. This covers just teachers, but when we have something like that where you would need more, it's different than when you guys go for your trainings. This is if
Oh,
you're
no, yeah.
actually working.
Like we do the resolutions committee, or you go do, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. So this is.
I just wanted to-
teacher, but
I know it says teacher, but I just want to make sure, because we both have collective bargaining.
we would
Okay.
do an MOU
Okay.
if we had a situation like that as well. And I forgot on this one that we did have a question. We do hire more than 250 employees. So on how many full-time employees do we do? I have signed 250 employees. It's the default. 5330, sick days, vacation days, holidays, and leave. It provides the unpaid leave benefits. This goes with the previous one. If anyone has lost a child by suicide or homicide, it also now every 4 years talks about the fact that election day is a new school holiday. Six colon 15, school accountability. This talks to the fact that ISBE will provide technical assistance to schools in school improvement status to assist with the development or implementation of improvement plans. We have a coach. This is something we're experiencing right now. We have a coach from ISBE who meets with himself and the school administration. And we have certain duties that we have to meet every so often. So under improvement status. 6:30, we have been able to, we have had full-time kindergarten, but there are parents who still elect. We have 4 this year that elect half day, but beginning with the 27-28 school year, full day kindergarten is going to be the way we go. No more half days.
It's mandatory, really mandatory. When they have to, they don't have a choice.
That's correct.
Not till 27, you said that?
27-28 school year. 650 school wellness. It denotes the district's responsibilities to help with health and wellness for students. I will tell you that our wellness policy, which has to be updated this year, we build everything into decision-making, both at the school level as well as the district level. So the good news is we're already kind of in compliance with this, but we will review all of it. And it's just looking at what wellness activities we do, how do we promote healthy eating environments for students. We limit the times. There's pops sold at lunches, or there's extra treats and things. Just making sure that we're promoting wellness as much as we can. Next is 660 curriculum content. And this is, we have new mandates and instructions, fentanyl, which we do in our health classes, and Native American history, and it removes some dates previously approved as start dates that have since passed. So a lot of them you'll see was beginning fall 2022. Since that's passed, they've just moved that out. Now it's just a requirement. So starting next fall, there is in grades 9 through 12, the dangers of fentanyl. And we've already talked to the high school about this, and this is a part of their health class where they will be teaching that. And then it talks about Native American nations, making sure that we have Native American history. Again, that's the fall of 2024. And so we will be looking to see where that is covered at all of our social studies and histories to make sure that we are in compliance. And then also talking about Native American genocide in North America has been added to part of our social studies as well. So then we find out where that is. It goes with the state standards that we have to make sure that it's taught. And I have reviewed that with Mr. Stansford, and he is going to work with the principals who then will work with their teachers. 6 to 30 is the library media program, and it basically says that it mentions the Library Bill of Rights, and it says the program adheres to the principles of the American Libraries Association Library Bill of Rights, which indicates that material should not be prescribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. As you know, and it's been all around, they have said that books are no longer to be removed from the library. The one thing I will say that we have done and we continue to do is anytime a book comes into the library, our library aides first take a look at it, as well as our librarian. If there's any question, that book is immediately sent to Mr. Stansford and myself for review as well. So far, we have not removed anything from any libraries, but there are some that were at lower levels we did not feel were developmentally appropriate, and the information was above their learning level, that we have moved up to different libraries. So we've had in place a process to make sure that the content is developmentally appropriate for as long as I've been here, and we're continuing.
I know I talked to Nancy about this, and that's one of the things that I said when all this was going on in some of the other high schools. And we had certain books, and I says, okay, I said, I have a question for you. I said, do you have this book in the high school, at our high school? She said, absolutely not. And I said, because I thought it was interesting, the one that was, and I can't remember the name of it, it was a big question people don't have. And that was the question I asked them. It was at a high school. I said, well, let me ask you, do you have 50 Shades of Grey in your book at your high school? Well, yeah. I said, how can you have a problem with that book? Now, I've never read that book. I just know the content of it. But I said, how can you have a problem with that book, but you don't have a problem with that book? But you have your high schoolers reading that book. Now, that's a judgment for me, but I'm just saying, you can't have it both ways.
Well, that's the
And
thing
that's what I said. I
is,
asked
depending on the judgment.
Do you have
like you said,
50
the
Shades? She goes,
judgment-
absolutely not.
Yeah.
She goes, that's not appropriate for.
And
Now, do I see the kids carry? Did I see kids carrying it?
Mhm. Yeah, at the time when it was really
Sure.
big, there
But
was,
didn't come from our high school.
right. And we do have certain books that, not that label, but some that have dealt with domestic abuse or things like that. There is at the high school books that you have to be 18 and prove that you're 18 in order, Colleen Hoover books, for example. And that's because the content is not anything other than it depicts domestic violence or spousal violence. And they want to make sure that the kids are developmentally ready to read that. So
I don't, you might remember, I mean, I remember I was in high school and Go Ask Alice that was a hot topic. I mean, that one, and I mean, I had to have permission from my parents. What was the book we read in English? And we had to have written parent permission from our parents to read it. Now it's just correct, that's only curriculum. And like, you didn't, you need permission and they read different books. So it's just kind of like, so things have changed. But I remember Go Ask Alice was a big,
yeah. So I'm really proud of what
So,
we
yeah,
do and how
they do a wonderful
the
job.
content, yeah, they're very specific, and when in doubt, it always comes out here and we take a look at it. So
Something that, I don't know, you guys do it.
7260 talks about residency, and it adds language on residency issues for students with disabilities and cross-references a different statute. So it's just making sure that we are equitable and we are not discriminating against individuals with disabilities. 770 was simply, there were no changes to the policy, just the legal references were updated on attendance and truancy. Since that seems to be a big topic right now, making sure kids get to school. 7160, and this is something actually that just came up last year. We can't be the only ones, Mr. Fritz. So the district does not prohibit the right of a student to wear or accessorize the student's graduation attire with items associated with their cultural, ethnic, or religious identity, or any other characteristic protected under the Illinois Human Rights Act. So this is one area that I will be working with Mr. Shaner at the high school from, because if someone wants to recognize their heritage, their culture, a lot of times there are extra sashes that can be worn. So we're going to make sure that it's, first of all, legitimate, that it's something that isn't obviously too ostentatious, because this is about the program for everyone. And so this is one of those things that we'll develop a procedure to put in place. That way, if kids want to honor that, we can allow them to do it and make sure it's all within the parameters. 7190 is student behavior. They have now had to include artificial intelligence and the plagiarism conversation and change order of dissemination of information in cases of a battery firearm incident at school. So it puts in there the fact that artificial intelligence, if we can approve it, is something that a student can be disciplined for if it's not their original work. What I am proud about is a lot of our teachers make the writing go on in class, because we all know Chat GPT and everything is out there. And so if anything is going to be written, they usually have it done in front of them so they know it is their legitimate ideas and thoughts on paper. And then it also updated regarding weapons that they updated. Used to be the Criminal Code of 1961, and they updated it in 2012, which is in there. And also talking about if we have any notices on school grounds of any weapons, that myself or whomever will immediately notify law enforcement agencies and report incidents involving battery against staff members to ISBE through an incident reporting system that we have. And we have to do that no later than August 1st of every year. And I think it's important to, understand we have kids with disabilities who strike out. That's different than a full-blown battery where there was, a conscious effort to hurt, harm, beat up staff members. So I just want that to know that every time a kid, depending on how they do it, we have to look at each one separately again and what does that look like and what does that mean? We did have a question on this one. It says the building principal must notify the student's parent or guardian only when the alleged offense is firearm possession. The policy expands this notification duty to drug-related incidents and battery of a staff member. Of course, we would let parents know if it's any of those three: a firearm, a drug-related incident, or a battery of a staff member. We would notify parents immediately. So I put expanded, included in our policy. 7270, and it talks about creating an allergy emergency action plan regarding the administration of medicine to students. It requires the districts to maintain a supply of undesignated opioid antagonists, permits a district to maintain a supply of undesignated oxygen tanks for special education facilities. So we already have our opioid antagonists in every building. We also have EpiPens in every building. We also even have asthma inhalers in every building if a student forgets, so we can make sure that kids are taken care of. We will be answering no to question 1, and here's why. We will maintain oxygen when we have a student who has that need. If we do not have a student that doesn't have that need, we don't want them on site because they are so flammable, and the things that we have to make sure are in place, we'll do that when we have a student, but if we don't, we're not going to keep extra on site. So we answer.
What if you have a staff member that has it all the time? This is just students.
Right now, this is just students, but I guarantee you if we had a staff member who needed it, we'd make sure that it was appropriately done.
These are all located like in the nurse's offices.
Usually, yes. It depends because most nurses' offices are very centrally located. But depending, like Sherry Hafer's office is not big enough to hold anything. We would have to look because the oxygen tanks have to be in special areas with specific cabinets for them. We'd have to try to find a location that was central and east because we don't want somebody on, depending if they're on 4th floor all the time.
Right, that's what I wondered how you did that without even like EpiPens and opioid and all that.
All of those are in, usually you'll find them in the nurse's office as well as the principal's office. On 1st floor. 1st floor. Yeah. Yeah. That's where you get people who can run upstairs fast to help you. So, because they're not just sitting open, you have to be sure they're secure. 7285, anaphylaxis prevention, response, and management program. It is streamlines the training requirements regarding anaphylactic reactions and management for staff members who work for students. Ours is taken care of when we have our EpiPen training. They're done both sometimes in your building. Your nurses can help you as well as we have that in public school work.
So you don't already do that.
Yes. 7290, suicide and depression awareness and prevention. This requires teachers, administrators, and school support personnel to work with students to be trained on identifying warning signs of mental illness, trauma, and suicidal behavior in youth. It requires student identification cards to have the suicide prevention lifeline, crisis life text line, and safe to help, which all of ours do. have that, especially at the middle school and the high school levels. We are working with Public School Works to make sure that we have this covered under our Public School Works training as well.
Dirty. On this one, like, like we do this public school works and it's like, okay, let's get through them and then we do them and it seems okay, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this one. Is there like initially on this one, is there any training we could do that has like an institute day and have a training on this one or?
Sure, we could look at something like that. We've got, we can look at something, depending on who needs it. I know there's mental health first aid. It's a big one, and identifying trauma. And
Yeah, I saw that in my doctor's office, a picture of it. I
yeah,
didn't know there was such a thing.
the mental health first aid.
I'm
Yeah,
not saying I don't take public work seriously, but it's just,
but that, I was
we
wondering, yeah,
all do it together, we
Wouldn't
all
that-
get through
that
it.
would be great,
This one I
right,
think,
to cover this, I would think.
like the DCFS one, and I read it, make sure I good on that one.
Right.
Or, I mean, there's a couple that it's not, I don't take it serious, but I am never gonna use probably the chemical fire extinguisher.
You hope not. Yeah.
But I know the K one's for the kitchen.
Kitchen.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I can put a note down to look at that, see if we can move that in to a half day or something like that.
I think that'd be great. I didn't even. Oh, never.
I'll work with Doug on that and see where we can get going. 8:30, visitors to and conduct on school property. This is again, it articulates the right of a district to prohibit attendance at school events and the process through which it should be carried out. And again, just as a reminder, I can do such a unique number, 59 days that we have. And then if I need it to go longer, I petition the board and the board would make it longer.
I do have a question, so this one on Native American history, was that a state,
Requirement.
school, Illinois school code, was that new for the state or is that federal? I was raised with it, but I was raised in the West, and so.
This is new under Illinois state learning standards. Yeah. This
Because
is
we're
one.
having
Yep,
the verbiage. I
the
couldn't
school,
come up
yeah,
with
the school code is the Illinois learning standard.
it.
You're
Oh,
right,
that'll
so,
be kind of cool. I grew up in Montana, so that was just standard.
yep.
Piggybacking off that real quick, I did notice under that same one, it said something about cursive. Do we teach
Oh,
cursive
yes,
in
we
our
do.
schools?
Yep, you
Yeah,
have
there
to
was
have it.
something- There was something else in that one. but I can't
It's,
remember.
it has to be before 5th grade, I believe. And yes, we do. I know that
Yeah.
They have
they
cursive
start it
third grade.
third
grade.
and do they finish in 4th?
No,
You
they-
don't think
okay,
they,
so
no,
it's
I
third
think
grade
they
only.
only do it in third grade. They
Well,
did
we're
have a
gonna say
handbook. but-
They put it on, a couple years.
Yeah, it has to be taught before they get to 5th.
Second grade, no, we're still doing name and first name, last
Uh-huh.
name. And printing.
Any other questions before we end?
Some kids are ready, I think.
All right, I'm gonna end the meeting. We're gonna click off.
Oh, that's good on that other end too.
So if she's ever.
Yeah, she gets there about 11.